Hello Internet and welcome to this day in history for the 11th of October. Today we are in 1687 where the Hungarian magnates officially declared the Habsburgs the sovereigns of the Hungarian lands. This was an important moment in the history of the Holy Roman Empire and in fact most of Central Europe, as it basically gave the Habsburg Holy Roman Emperors a new lease on life at a period where their power were otherwise in decline. Of course, they were in the midst of the Great Turkish Wars, and following the siege of Vienna 4 years prior, they had been advancing into the Hungarian plains and down into the Balkans. But as I have mentioned in my video I did some time ago about the Holy Roman Empire as an overview, their powers and influence in central Germany was strongly weakening, especially as they were coming under pressure from the Protestant northern princes, and especially, of course, slowly the House of Brandenburg, which would eventually develop over the next 30 or so years into the Kingdom of Prussia, which was to remain a persistent thorn in the flesh of the Habsburg monarchy, basically up until the ending of the 19th century. But anyhow, in 1687, the Habsburg imperial forces of the Holy League had driven the Turks enough out of the high plains of Hungary that the magnates felt secure in repudiating their former allegiance and declaring for the House of Habsburg as ruler of Hungary, starting to a certain degree the double monarchy that would eventually survive the fall of the Holy Roman Empire to Napoleon in 1806 and become first the Empire of Austria, and then after the uprisings and revolutions in the revolutionary year of 1848, the Hungarian-Austrian Empire of the double monarchy. Beyond this strengthening of the Habsburg rule in Central Europe, which also meant a weakening of the Turkish position, and after that basically a shift from the primary enemy of the Turks being the European Habsburgs into being the Russians, which meant that from this moment on, Europe as such was basically safe from any Turkish invasions and expansion, since most of the rest of the century was the Turks being forced back by the imperial armies under Eugene of Savoy, but also just because in the future they realized they could no longer deal with the Central Europeans and instead had to fend off attempts of expansion from the Russian sovereigns. This allowed, of course, the Habsburg from regaining some of the strength they had lost in the last century with the greater independence of the North and Central German princes of the empire, and allowed them to again become a direct enemy to the French, which was very instrumental in stopping Louis XIV of France from dominating all of Europe in the War of Spanish Succession and the 9 Years' War prior to that. It also basically meant that the high age of Habsburg culture could begin up through the 18th century, but that is primarily a different tale. But yes, anyway, this day in history for the 11th of October, 1687, when the Hungarian magnates accepted Habsburg suzerainty over Hungary instead of the Turks and allowed the Habsburg monarchy to recharge their batteries, so to speak, after 100 years of decline. Until next time, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.